it. You're going to make me cry. Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I wish those at home can see the crowd, the amazing individuals that are here today to support me. And I'll talk a little bit more about why they're here, not just because they're cool people. But like I said, my name is Mizari Suarez. I was brought to this country when I was a little girl. I am from Mexico, specifically Torreon, Coahuila. And I like to say that I am very proud to be Mexican, Mexicana, but my home is Lexington. And Lexington, and I always talk about this with friends, Lexington has this very unique feeling. And those who have been here in Lexington know how Lexington is and what Lexington has to offer. However, as an immigrant, a lot of the times we're looking for a sense of belonging. And at times, that sense of belonging is very hard to find, especially in our city, right? Our city, I think, does a wonderful job at making sure that everyone, I'll take that back. Our city doesn't do a wonderful job at making sure everyone is welcoming, that feels welcome. We make sure that certain neighbors in our city feel that way. However, there's certain neighbors in our city that don't feel that way. And I am one of those neighbors. And I say, if there's anything we can do is be neighborly. And although I might live in a different zip code from many of you all, I think you all are still my neighbors. And those at home, you're still my neighbor. And we should all be neighbors to one another. Home to me is the sense of when I leave the city of Lexington to go on a trip, I urge to come back to what I know is here. And what I am proposing here today is a couple things. I propose that we move away from zip codes and districts to create home for everyone in 3 meaningful ways: being intentional, loving unconditionally, and being a good neighbor. Those 3 things are what has made Lexington home. Not because I have done that. I have done that in some ways, but there have been folks who are here today who I wish you all could see through Zoom, Facebook Live, wherever you're at, the folks who have done that for me. The first point, being intentional. What does being intentional mean? What does being intentional? You might be thinking, how are you intentional, Mizari? Well, I'll tell you one way I am very intentional. And a lot of folks in here can tell you this. I rock the boat. Big time. And I'm sure I'm on someone's list somewhere. And I'm sure someone's blacklist. I know I am. I rock the boat. I am unapologetic about what I say. And I'm also intentional to bring my neighbors to where I am at. Shout out to Hondro. I know him as Alex Frias, the little high school kid I met in my first professional job, and who has grown to be a fantastic young adult. But being intentional is also putting your neighbors aside, on top of any institution or any organization that threatens our neighbors. That is being intentional. When we are intentional, we move away from praising one institution for doing something for one group and not doing for another group. We make sure that we are constantly being there for our neighbors and advocating for the things that they need. Second, well, let me go back to intentionality. Because a lot of the times, intentionality can also make some of us be saviors. And that is not what we want. Because I will tell you something. Our communities, especially those communities that have not been at the table, know what they need. They do. And I wish you all could see the folks on this floor, because these folks know what the community needs. So what are some ways that we can make sure that those folks are at the table, right? We bring them to the table, but also All of you at home and those here, we occupy spaces, whether in institutions, whether in certain zip codes, whatever those spaces are, where, where we need our neighbors, where our neighbors are not heard. Like I said, I rock the boat quite often. And a lot of my ideas are of people think they're like, well, they're not very realistic, but they are realistic. If there's something that society and history and social movements have taught us, is that we have to be intentional. Intentionality is the way that we make sure our neighbors are seen and heard. Second point, loving unconditionally. And this one's going to be a little bit tough for me because I am about to share two little side stories, and one's very tough. Well, I think they're both very tough. Like I said, I call Lexington home. Lexington is where I tell so many folks this is where I'm going to live. This is probably where I'm going to die. And I feel that in my soul. I feel that when I walk through Chestnut Street. I feel that when I walk down North Limestone, when I walk and go get my ice cream at a lounge, and so many places that are home for me. I feel that in my soul. However, there's times where, like I said, our city, our institutions don't necessarily make this place home. And one of those incidents was a couple summers ago. Our city decided to pass a resolution that would impact so many neighbors, especially our undocumented neighbors. And at that time, a group of folks who are here today got together and we're like, we have to do something. And although we weren't heard, and this still passed, and it hurt so many of our neighbors, all of us kept showing up every day, giving love to those folks who neglected to see us. And who still neglect to see us, who neglect to see this amazing community that is here and that has so much to give. That was painful because if you know me, the folks who know me on this floor today, who are here today, know that maybe sometimes I just want to go and just give it all to them and say things that maybe are not very friendly, very loving, and very neighborly. But we all feel that way. We all do. However, it's always our vulnerable neighbors who have to be extra loving, who have to be extra unapologetic, because I have to see that you and I are connected, and we're all connected. The second incident where I was like, and I wanted to give up, I wanted to throw in the towel, and Mizari wanted to get away from Lexington, Kentucky, was when COVID first hit. For those who know me, know that I think everyone knows where I live. And let's just say my street needs a little bit of love, a lot of extra love. And as a neighbor, that is one of the things we should all do, is always give the love that we want to receive. And this particular Sunday morning, I'll never forget, it was a Sunday morning, 11 a.m., there was gunshots. And I've never told anyone this story before, only the people that really know me. And I thought, what in the world's going on? For sure, it can't be on good old Chestnut Street. Sure enough, there was gunshots coming down my driveway, people throwing fire at one another, and one hits my house and my car. At that moment, I thought I was dead. I thought I was gone. And it was painful to come back to that. It was painful to come back to something that you have grown and nourished, either through beekeeping, long story, growing food for your neighbors, or collaborating with your neighbors to beautify your neighborhood on different capacities. And for the longest time, so Mizari ran away for a week, and I said, I'm leaving. And out of all places, I decided to go to Omaha, Nebraska. You ask, what's in Nebraska? Cornfields. Yes. And family, but mainly cornfields. And I escaped, and I told myself, I never want to come back to this place. I never want to come back to this place that has hurt and that is hurt. And so I did deep reflecting, and I said, no, you have to come back. Because for those who don't know me, my mom was a single mom who raised 4 children. So I am the oldest of 4, and she never gave up. She never gave up. She continued to truck along, as a friend would say, and make things work. And that's what I did. I came back, and my heart was full of anger. And for the longest time, I was not very friendly to a lot of my neighbors. I was angry. I was upset. I did not walk the neighborhood. I said, I'm not growing food. This food can rot. I'm not doing it. I give up. But so many friends told me, don't give up. Don't give up, because this is your home. And this is where you want to be. And it was those friends who pushed me through to create that home that is home today for me, and that's also home for so many of my neighbors. Whether that was through growing food, being asked by some of our transient neighbors, what are you growing this year? That was home. Because every time I left, I came back and I realized those neighbors are going to ask me if I have cucumbers. And who's going to be there to give them cucumbers? Who's going to be there to give them tomatoes? Who's going to be there to just have a conversation with them about green tomatoes? And I know nothing about green tomatoes. And it was also, I realized that it was not just, I could not teach, and I was told this by some folks, you cannot teach other individuals, those who don't want to see our neighbors, you cannot teach them to love our neighbors. It is not our responsibility to teach others to love our neighbors, but we can all play a role in creating that responsibility to love our neighbors. Being neighborly. Those who've known me have known that I preach neighborliness. And what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means to me. Back in 2016, I stepped away from the immigrant rights movement because I was sick of it. And I didn't feel comfortable. And not because I wasn't passionate about the topic, but because a lot of our neighbors were left out. And a part of me, the intellectually part of me, I will say, was curious about how do we build a connection to everyone? How do we fight for everyone on an intersectional way? What does that look like? And that got me involved on a very local level in racial justice, housing, and food. Hence why I have tomatoes and cucumbers, not this year, and sunflowers and bees, because that is what neighborliness is, right? So I told myself, I don't like the word activist. Activist is not my thing. I'm not. I will be honest with you. The first demonstration I did was in Texas with my friend, and I was losing it. Deep down, I was losing it. I'm like, I didn't tell my mom where I was at, first of all. It was until after the fact that she found out that we were doing a demonstration. So I was like, this is not my thing, but there has to be something more, right? I have a lot of activist friends. Shout out to them. They can do it. But Mizari's going to stay home and love her neighbors and be neighborly and show up in spaces where neighbors are constantly being left out. And I said, go away with activists. Mizari is not an activist, but Mizari is a neighbor. And in 2016, I said, no more activists. I need to sit down and get some things done, because I was being told by a lot of people that I dearly love, you gotta finish your degree. which, yes, I had to. But I also had to continue to advocate. I had to continue to advocate. And the way through that was being neighborly. It was going to places, occupying spaces where my neighbors weren't, and bringing those neighbors with me, asking in community forums, well, what are you doing for our neighbors, our immigrant neighbors? What are you doing for our neighbors on Chestnut Street? What are you doing for all of our neighbors? Not just those on the south side, but I want a park too. I want a nice park for my little friends. So that was me being neighborly. Taking that extra step, moving from this huge thing of activists into action, because that's what being neighborly is having action. Because when we are neighborly, we advocate for our friends on a bigger scale than anything else, because we are tied to those individuals, either because they are our neighbors or because they live on the other side of town in Woodhill. But you know that our struggles are the same, and that we all want to just love our neighbors. And also, I got to meet wonderful individuals in my first professional job. Shout out to Laura Hatfield, Marcus, and Chloe, who walk the talk, who walk alongside their neighbors every day to love them. And I told myself when I met them, like, that is who I want to be. But with a little extra rocking the boat, because we need to rock the boat. And so I told myself, I need to be a neighbor before anything else, before an activist, before anything, because I am connected to those individuals on a deeper level than anything else. And if there's anything else that you take from this, is that you need to be a neighbor. Being a neighbor will connect us to those individuals who are constantly being left out, either through institutions, through our cities, through our organizations, whatever that looks like. You need to be a neighbor, because there's folks who are here today who I tell you, they should be running the city. If they were put in positions where these folks can get things done and get the resources to their communities, our city would be a better place and would be an inclusive city. So you might be thinking, okay, I got 3 points, Mizari. What do you want me to do with that? Do what your heart tells you to do. And I know it sounds corny, and I know these 3 points might be a utopian idea. But like I said, if there's anything that social movements, as the person who stepped away from activism and who sought ways to understand the complexities of race, ethnicity, and all these things and all the injustices in the world, if there's anything that social movements have taught us, is that love and loving unconditionally is the solution to everything. It is the solution to seeing people not as the brown, crazy, curly-haired Latina, but as Mizari, the neighbor, and Monica, the neighbor, and Milton, the neighbor. And the folks that I invited here today are folks who have done that, who have created this circle of love in a full life circle. Like I said, Alex, high school. And so many of these individuals I've known for years, and it's a life circle that has come into flourishing. And these folks, what have they done? They have been intentional. They have been unapologetic about giving their love to people that look different from them. And they have been neighborly. And when you do those 3 things, you are invited to a different world that looks different from you. You are invited to their group of people who will cherish you forever. So what have these folks done for me? I'll tell you. They have told me that I am a chingona, and have pushed me personally, academically, and so many other ways to believe that I can do this and maybe take over the world. Maybe I'll start in taking over the city first. They have also given me my first professional job, who have pushed me to be the professional that I am today. They have also taught me to walk the talk. That if you're going to love your neighbors, you need to be there. You don't need to be living out Southland Drive, Mizari. And I don't belong on Southland Drive, I'll be honest. Maybe just once in a while when I'm at the co-op getting coffee. That I need to walk the talk. And if I'm going to do it, it needs to be intentional. It needs to be unconditionally giving love. And I need to be a neighbor. So go out there. If there's anything you do today or you do tomorrow, but don't wait until people are being hurt, undervalued to do something. Go and love your neighbors and bring them wherever you are. Thank you all.